Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Welcome, folks, to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and today I'm very happy to have Stacy Brown with me from Real Property Management. This is just another aspect of real estate that I want to discover and explore on the podcast with all of you. And another way that people who are licensed in real estate can do their business, and a very important part of what it is to be involved in the practice of real estate. Welcome, Stacy. Hello. Nice to have you here.
Good morning. Good morning, Andrea. Thank you for having me.
Very, very cool. Well, Stacy, you are based out of Dallas, Fort Worth, and you are the trainer of trainers at Real Property Management. You train people how to property manage. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we are a franchise-based property management company. So basically, to put it in layman's terms, we license the name Real Property Management to over 456 locations across the United States. By and large, the folks that come and purchase a property management company from Real Property Management mostly don't have a background in property management, or maybe they do, but they understand what a brand can do for them. So our job here, at least in my department at Real Property Management, is to take folks that don't understand the industry completely and give them an understanding of what the industry is, as well as how we work with our different partners to ensure that our operations remain profitable and sellable.
Very cool. Very cool. And give me an idea of the types of property that these people will be managing under your tutelage.
So when we have a new franchise owner come to us, generally we ask them to stay centered in on the single family rental area of the industry. Property management, much like real estate, of course, we have a plethora of different types of properties that we can manage. Mm-hmm. However, we find that sticking with the single family in your first few years to really get an understanding of what it means to actually manage a property is the best course of action. Then, of course, we've got folks that come to us with an aptitude with common interest communities or even apartment community management, mixed use, light industrial. Our property management companies across country manage everything under the sun. So it just comes with that person's aptitude, their background, what they're comfortable with, and their experience.
Very, very cool. Now, you're licensed, are you not?
Currently, I'm not. I'm so sorry.
Did you ever get your license?
I've been licensed in 7 states. Yes. But because I am now teaching how to run property management companies, I don't currently have one, but I will be working on getting a Texas real estate license.
All right. No, didn't mean to put you under the skewer there. No, because most people that do property management have to be licensed, at least where we are. And do you have rent control in most of the states that you deal with, or would you say it's just limited to my crazy state and a couple of others?
I think it's limited for now. And I say for now because, of course, if you watch the legislative actions coming across, this has been a push from a lot of folks across the country. And, you know, if I might say, I'm going to live a neighborly code of value here. I'm going to speak honestly and with purpose. Please. Rent control on the surface seems like a great idea. But when you dig into it, it absolutely kills our industry. It kills the ability for our industry to maintain the levels of professionalism that we need to maintain, as well as it kills the investors' appetite for continuing to invest in these properties. If we don't have the best quality properties, we're not going to get the best quality and qualified renters for those investors, and it's going to hurt the whole thing.
No, absolutely. There are cities in our state like San Jose that have used to be able to pass on capital improvements on properties to the tenants. They are no longer allowed to do so by law. Because of that, what we're going to start seeing is blight. Because why in their right mind would an investor spend more money than they genuinely feel comfortable spending if they are going to have absolutely no return on that investment? So you can have a perfect world where everybody's paying lots of money in rent, the building is being perfectly maintained, or you can have a world where you have people that have been living in the units for 30 years that are paying $250 a month, and the building is falling apart because the owner can't pass on any capital improvement cost to those people. So it's not financially worth it for them to do anything about it. They're figuring that when they 1031 exchange out of the property, that somebody else will do the work. So you end up with slums, basically. And it's very short-sighted. Most of the, and this is not a popular opinion, by the way, in Berkeley, California, where we have the most draconian rent control probably in the country. But that's the reality of the situation, is that it sets people up for failure on a regular basis. In our area, they also have been floating legislation called TOPA, which is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. Have you heard about that before?
I've heard a little bit about that, Andrea, and that's a little spooky as well.
Well, what that is that you can get a poor realtor like me to represent your property, and I can do a great job, and I can get you 5 offers, and they're all wonderful. And then you have to offer it to the tenants for up to 5% less than your top offer.
Yeah.
They are also attempting to repeal what's called Costa-Hawkins, which is rent control in relationship to single family homes. Right now, single family homes are completely exempt from rent control. And as you know, once a lease expires, in our area at least, it goes month to month, and the tenants have basic rights and no eviction control rights, except unless somebody is like cooking meth in the kitchen, failing to pay their rent, moving in people that are not allowed on the lease, what have you. So if Costa-Hawkins gets repealed, a professor at Cal could go away for their sabbatical for 9 months and rent their house out. And then the person who's living in the house could go, you know what? I really like this house. I'm not going to move out when you come back. Sorry. And the person would have basically no recourse except to buy them out for a phenomenal amount of money. I mean, in our area, the basic cost to buy someone out of a lease, basic cost is $20,000 per person.
Yeah, at a bare minimum. I mean, they're setting up squatters' rights.
Yeah.
And holding landlords hostage.
Yeah.
You've got other states where they require landlords to pay for moving expenses if they're going to terminate a lease. I mean, these restrictions, as I said, just like rent control, on the surface to the layperson, they seem like a great idea, but they don't think about the business of real estate. They don't think about the ebb and flow that has to happen. And to your point, if I can't do any kind of improvement to a property, and now I've got these folks that are living in those properties for well under market rent, I'm setting these people up to fail in their lives. I mean, truly. I've got a home that's not habitable. I have an investor that owns the property that doesn't have the ability to put the funds back into it to make the home comfortable. Forget about elegant, just comfortable and habitable.
Right.
So a lot of these things that are coming across through the legislation right now are just really quite scary. You brought something up, Andrea. You said, most people have to have a real estate license to do property management and or sales of real estate. And then the thing that I think that is interesting that I'm seeing more states starting to do is these extra licenses that are required of people in the property management industry. I'll give you a for instance. In Nevada, where I was licensed for quite a lot of years, I had to hold 3 licenses to do what I do. I had to have a real estate license, which was tied to my real estate broker. I had to have a property manager's permit to handle any kind of rental property or commercial property. And then I also had to have a common interest or a community association manager's license. All 3 of those licenses carried different continuing education credit requirements. They couldn't overlap, right? And they had to be renewed every other year. To me, even though it was kind of a pain, I think Nevada has it right. I think that the more education that we can give to folks, the better. You know, we have a lot of people in the property management industry that like to put on a real estate sales agent hat. Well, they're not a real estate sales agent.
Right.
And they need to actually understand that there is someone that is licensed and way more professional in that area than they are. You know, we've got now licensing for reserve study specialists, which I think should have happened a very long time ago. These guys tell people what you're going to do, what you're going to put aside for those capital improvements for 30 years, for heaven's sakes. They should be licensed. And I also feel that in the realm of property management, which is adjacent to real estate agents, should have a specialized license as well, because it is quite different, the relationship that we have.
Totally. I would never lease something out, ever. I think it's real. I mean, again, I'm really, really good at real estate sales. I know how to do that backwards and forwards, but I've never managed a property personally. Well, actually, that's not true. I have managed a property personally, but I have not done it as a professional or someone else. And it seems to me that staying in your lane is a crucial element of real estate. Like, I also don't do commercial real estate because I don't know anything about it. And I think it's best left to people that do that every day to do that. And all of these things require specialized skill sets. They have continuing education requirements. I don't think the general public has any idea what we actually do as far as continuing education is concerned in our profession. It is, and in the state of California, at least, I don't know about the other states that you're involved in, real estate, the practice of real estate is actually one of the professions, like being a doctor or a lawyer. It just doesn't get the respect that it deserves.
Amen, Andrea. Amen.
And as far as you being cognizant of all these regulations and rules in all these different states, my Lord, that must be incredible.
It's a lot to keep up on, but after all this time in this industry, because one thing to know about me, Andrea, is I haven't done anything other than property management. Well, I was a waitress in high school. How's that? But I've been in property management my entire life, and in fact, I joke, but I think it's really true that I live, breathe, and bleed this industry. It's exciting to me. It's dynamic. It's always changing. There's always a call for public opinion. You know, we do a lot of answering for call to public opinion. Like when the Renters Bill of Rights came out, we did a big answer to that. And I think you're right. I think a lot of times people just really don't understand what it is. A lot of times people think property management is, I go get a for rent sign, I stick it in the yard. I find someone that looks kind of good that I think they'll probably pay rent. I really clicked with them, and it's easy peasy. And then I just sit back and collect a check. Or that's what the management company does, and they couldn't be further from the truth.
Absolutely. Well, there are terrible management companies out there who do exactly what you're talking about. But to do it right, you have to understand all these regulations and rules. You have to understand tenants' rights. You have to know what it is to maintenance a big building. You need to know what it is to make sure that the building is not running out of reserves, that you are in contact with the HOA to tell them, what's going on. You have to get inspections. They're specialized inspections. You have to meet regulations like in Oakland, we have sidewalk ordinances that are coming into play. Those are massive. If you own a building that is a block square and you have to maintain the sidewalk all the way around that building, that's a lot of money. Or just the roof on something. I was shocked. I was representing a condo in a building where a roof was needed, and they had very, very poor reserves, unfortunately. And the roof bid on this building came into $300,000. And people don't understand the enormity of things like that. So
Yeah, exactly.
hats off to you for being able to train people well to do this. And also, all of us, myself included, we're all involved in different associations. Is there a real property management association that you're involved with?
Oh, we belong to IREM, Institute of Real
Mm-hmm.
Estate Management, the National Association of Residential Property Managers, NARPM. We are members of Community Associations Institute. And we're also, a lot of us are members of our local apartment associations as well. Um, it's funny because one of the questions that I get from my franchise owners after they've been in the business for about years, they start to think about those continuing education credits and they say, "Oh, my association of realtors has this really great class on writing a sales agreement." And I kind of grin and I look at them and I say, "You're going to sell a house when?" And they're like, "Well, we're not. We just have to get these credits." I said, "Okay, well then you need to go to property management courses and get better at the industry that you're in by
Right.
going to those other clubs."
Correct. And I've been a member, well, I was on the board of directors of our association for 15 years, and I'm currently on the board of directors of the multiple listing service in our area, and was on the board something called MMG, which was the combined board of all the multiple listing services in the area, because I just want to continually grow and learn and understand. And I also want to make sure that I'm in a position where I can actually have an effect if there's some stupid legislation coming down the pike through the cities that I'm involved with, where I will have some sort of a voice through my organization to making sure that at least somebody understands the ramifications of what it is they're proposing. I think those things are really, really important for our community. And I'm not just talking about the realtor community, I'm talking about the greater community of everyone who lives in a place. Um, so so when you started out, were there classes like the ones that you are teaching to people, or did you have to figure it all out?
Oh no, there absolutely were not. And like I said, a bit over the years that is changing. As I said, in Nevada, they do have I think a 24-hour class that you
Mhm.
must go through. But again, you can't really teach how to manage property professionally in 24 hours. You can come close, you can scratch the surface.
Right.
And most people that go through real estate licensing courses, if they have a page or even a 10-minute talk about property management, that's great training out there across
Mhm.
the United States right now. It's it has changed, right? We've got the federal laws with Federal Fair Housing Act and all of the different things that the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development are putting together. But there's still a need for very much more. So one of the things that we do here at Real Property Management is we encourage our franchise owners to actually develop and go out to the Association of Realtors, to their local MLS, and put on a course. This is what a property management company does and can do, and
Mhm.
where a partnership with someone who is a professional can, in fact, make everyone else um, much happier,
Mhm.
ease the stress of everything. And, let's face it, we're all in business to make money. None of us are here for the UNICEF model. So, I mean, but we need to actually just say that. So many times I find that people in the property management industry are looked upon as staff
Mhm.
rather than as professionals that hold these licenses, that know all of these
Right.
different pieces. No different than in your industry, Andre, right? There is
Oh,
no way I could write a sales contract. It's Greek to me, right?
yeah.
However, I could go through your management agreement and tell you what you need to pay attention to and what's important.
Right. Last year, I had a condo that would not sell. And the woman who owned it was lovely. She lived in England, by the way. Um, And so for her, this was all sort of very, very foreign on every level. And not being able to find someone who wanted to buy her gorgeous unit, which it was absolutely beautiful, was shocking to both of us. But of course, we now realize at the end of 2024 that 2023 and 2024 were terrible years of real estate, for a wide variety of reasons. And we had a great relationship all along. And she came to me and said, okay, well, since we can't sell it, can you just rent it out for me? And I said, I'm really sorry. No, I don't do that. I've never done that before. You want somebody who knows what they're really doing. And she literally could not find someone. And so she went to, I guess it was Zillow or someplace like that, where they have just, basic stuff. And she went through hell and gone to get her unit rented out. And when she did finally get it rented out, the person turned out to have somehow managed to fake all their credentials and did not pay their rent. They paid the initial rent, but stopped paying rent. And then, of course, I get another phone call, which is, can you fix this? And of course, I can't fix it. And so I told her to seek the help of a qualified real estate attorney to deal with the situation. And I don't know what happened from there, but it was really sad to me because it actually tainted my relationship with her, which had been really good. And I was hoping that at some point in the future, I would get that listing back to sell it. But it's much more complicated than people realize. You have to check credit. You have to, know when somebody's faking things from start to finish. You have to understand the variables of what was involved. And it was very hard for her to even get that person, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, and subsequent to that, there was a scam on Craigslist where someone was attempting to rent the unit out, even though she had already rented it to this deadbeat.
Yeah, you hear about those things all the time, and it's really funny because in our industry, the very first thing that people bring up is the price.
Mm-hmm.
The average across the United States is 10 to 12% of
Mm-hmm.
the expected rent. And
Mm-hmm.
we hear all the time, well, what if you don't collect the rent? I'm not going to pay the management fee. So much more goes into management than just collecting the rent,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not a rent collection service, we're a property management service. But when we have folks that come to us, like your example, those are the ones that usually started off with, oh, it's way too much money. Or they tried the Zillow thing, or they went through Rentler and tried to do it themselves because they have a way for renters to pay online. And then the realization of how much really goes into it. Or maybe they got a violation from the common interest community, or they got a violation from the city because the grass wasn't cut, right? Things like that. Now all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden they're in over their head. That's when they finally seek us out. And I think that if within all of our industries that touch the real estate industry profession, I think that if everyone could find their person, right? I could reach out and I could hold on to Andrea. She's my salesperson. And I'm going to reach out and I'm going to hold on to this banker and this insurance broker, and,
Yep.
right? Where we had a net that covered
Mm-hmm.
that entire journey. That's where we become more powerful
Mm-hmm.
because now we've got a person, right?
Yeah.
Now it's time to sell. Oh, let's call Andrea. Oh, well, I may need to do some capital improvements. Well, let's talk over here, right? So the more that we get together, the more that the different industries that touch this whole big industry talk and keep these
Mm-hmm.
lines of communication open, I think the stronger and better we're going to be. And the more educated we can make everyone else out there about
Yep.
what it means to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a rash of young agents that are coming up that don't, basically you get your real estate license. It's like getting your driver's license. You don't actually know how to drive a car and you haven't been in any actual situations yet with the car. You've been with your mom or dad sitting in the front seat with you. That's pretty much what you've done. And then once you're out on your own is when you start discovering all the nuances and all of the variables that can occur. And after 27 years in this business, I still get thrown for a loop every once in a while by some incredibly random thing that comes up that you have no idea about.
Yeah.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think it's really important for those of us who have been in the trenches for a very, very long time to also give back to our community and teach, in a sense, because if somebody's willing to learn, the whole world is open to them, as far as I'm concerned. Stacy, you have been an absolutely marvelous guest. It was so funny. When I first heard that you were involved with property management, I thought, okay, that's an interesting field. It's not exactly what I do, but in actuality, it really is a huge part of real estate. It's a huge part of how people make profit in real estate. It's a huge part of how investors make profit in real estate. It's a huge part of our city's coffers. That's by the business taxes, et cetera, that get paid in. It's a very, very important part of our industry. And I really appreciate that you came on the show today. It means a lot to me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it was my pleasure.
Awesome. All right. Take good care.
All right. We'll see you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon, signing off from Realizations. See you next time.